And I will start now, so please listen. Without inner peace, it is impossible to have world peace. So says His Holiness, the Dalai Lama. The Taoist reading gives us that stair-step understanding of peacemaking, that if you want peace at any level, socially, you have to work. You have to work on peace at level below it, so that the peace between nations needs peace in the cities, and peace in the home needs peace in the heart. Let's join with common intent and purpose. Common intent and purpose. We have strong vibrations, so that intent and purpose, when we send it out to the universe, is so strong. It's so strong, it creates what we have set as an intention. So please, if there is to be peace in the world, there must be peace in the nations. If there is to be peace in the nations, there is to be peace in the cities. If there's to be peace in the cities, there must be peace between neighbors. If there's to be peace between neighbors, there must be peace in the home. If there is peace in the home, there must be peace in the heart. Peace in the heart. The heart is very powerful. Go to your heart. Feel your heart. Feel the strength in your heart. Feel the love of God, the love of Creator, the love of the universe, the love of Father Sky, the love of Mother Earth. Feel that strong love that you have. Feel that love so strong, and let's send it out to the universe for peace in this universe, peace in this world, and so it is. Amen. And I'd like to introduce Mr. Arun Sahara, and he will do the introduction. Big round of applause, please.
Thank you, Reverend Manny, and welcome everyone. Can you raise that can you add some juice into this one, please?
Not juice. You need to get a little closer.
Okay. All right. Let me start by saying that it's a great pleasure and honor to introduce one great Mahatma. You understand the meaning of Mahatma. It means a great soul, who happens to be my teacher, my Vedanta teacher, my guru. And whatever I know a little bit about Vedanta today, very little, is all because of him. It's my gratitude towards such a great teacher. In fact, I would like to really give a long introduction, but the only problem is it will be unfair and I'll eat into the time which he has got for his speech and also for questions and answers later on. So I'll try to give a brief introduction. But you have to remember, on my stage of life, even saying good morning takes about 5 minutes. Well, okay. If I have to describe Swami Tattvavidananda, who was actually known before taking monkhood as Dr. Ramakrishna Rani, a great scientist, if I have to introduce him in one single sentence, then I'll have to really come up with some words. Now, many of you really don't know him, and many of you do know him. So I'm not going to give you all the details. And I'm not here to tell you that he has got 2 PhDs. One in chemistry and one in Sanskrit, including Vedanta, for which he got a gold medal. He was very much honored there. I'm also not going to tell you that he is recently been honored by the government of India as Maha Mahopadhyay, which really means he is one of the greatest scholars, scholar among scholars in Sanskrit language and with Vedanta. And I am also not going to tell you this thing, that he is an embodiment of humility. If you look at him, he looks like a very ordinary person with extraordinary mind. Now what I'm going to tell you in one sentence is about his unique style of teaching. And that style of teaching is multidimensional, multidisciplinary, and it's integrated, original, and ever fresh type of teaching. And what do I mean by this word multidimensional and integrated? It really means that when he is really giving a talk on Vedanta, he has got many other subjects which are interwoven into it. And they are interwoven in such a way that it starts revealing the truth. To give you an example, when he talks about science, he comes across like an eminent scientist, like an Einstein, for example. When he talks about Sanskrit grammar, during his speech, he will talk about Sanskrit grammar. I hope not here. Because we are not Sanskrit scholars. He teaches actually Sanskrit during his speech. And he teaches like the great grammarian known as Panini. When he teaches philosophy in his talk, he teaches like you can think like Immanuel Kant, or you can think like Bishop Berkeley. And when he teaches the literature, whether it's Shakespearean literature or Kalidasa literature, it all comes from a memory bank which he has got, which is huge, which never ends in size. And he also teaches what you call as psychology, because he's a super psychologist himself. So when I look at such an individual who has got such vast knowledge and deep knowledge in so many subjects, multidimensional subjects, I start wondering, it's kind of mind-boggling to think that there is a person like him exists in this world. Now I'm reminded of the words which were said by Albert Einstein when Mahatma Gandhi passed away. He had great, actually, admiration for Mahatma Gandhi. And I'll just repeat those words. He said, generations to come will scarcely believe that one such as him walked about this earth in flesh and blood. Again, I'll repeat, he said, generations to come, they will scarce believe that one such as him walked upon this earth in flesh and blood. And believe you me, I get exactly the same feeling, and I wonder how an individual like him, like Swami Tattvavidananda, is walking on this earth in flesh and blood. With this, I request Swamiji to come and give an enlightening talk on self-inquiry.
You are now reading this?
Yes.
Now it is better. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Hari Om Gananantva Ganapatikum Havamahe Kavim Kavinam Upamashramastamam Jyeshtarajam Brahmanam Brahmanaspata Anashram Vannotibhisveda Satanam Shri Mahaganadhipataye Namaha Sadashivasamarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam Atmaswarupa Bandhukana. I am very joyous and consider myself very privileged to be in this place, which has a marvelous ambience of love, peace and spirituality. I particularly liked the peace invocation of the Reverend who has done a great job, Mani. And then the introduction given by Dr. Arun, it speaks more about his love for me than myself. that is how I look at it. I am grateful to him for very nice words. And today's topic of discussion is self-inquiry. I would like to point out in the very outset that It is not that I give a lecture and you listen to it and learn. It is not like that. The self-inquiry is a topic about life. Life is what everybody knows. Life is not unknown to any human being for that matter. And we all are living a life, and we know a lot about that life. And so any inquiry about life can only be done together. It is not somebody teaches and other people learn. It is not like something like a subject like calculus or physics, in which someone who knows it teaches, and those all others who do not know the subject yet, they learn. Life cannot be like that, Life is with you, with me, with all of us. And so we explore the life, the human existence together. That is the topic of self-inquiry. Generally, the word self-inquiry is less used. Even among the circles of Vedanta students, they talk of self-knowledge more than self-inquiry. In fact, we have I came across a magazine, a monthly magazine, named Self-Knowledge. And also many teachers of Vedanta also sometimes like to present themselves as teaching self-knowledge. The word self-knowledge is quite often used. Nothing wrong in it. It translates as Atma Jnanam in Sanskrit, and it sounds quite all right. Therefore, it can be used. It is used, it was used, and we can still use it. But we should be a bit cautious when we use the word self-knowledge. It is the knowledge of the self is unlike any other knowledge. And unless you are conscious of that fact, the usage of self, the word, the expression self-knowledge casually could be very misleading. Like, suppose I say I know the pot. Pot is an object, and so I know the pot. That is called pot knowledge. And therefore, I am the one who knows, the knower, and pot is the known. And then there is a mechanical process of knowing. Knowing, we call it knowing, but very, very rigorously, if you want to name it, it is cognizing. Still you can call it know. The word is not I am not contesting the usage of the word, but while using the word, you should be conscious of the significance of the word. The usage of the word should not be misleading. Therefore, when I say I know the part, nothing wrong in it. You can say the word I know the part, but a more rigorous expression could be I cognize the part. Because in the knowing, the knowing of the part is a mechanical process. You should know that. It's a mechanical process. Because it is the mind which modifies as a thought. And that the thought modification happens. It's a mechanically it happens. There is an outside stimulus. The part throws light on the retina, and then some electrical sensations happen, optical sensations. They are conveyed to the brain, and the brain integrates this enormous number of sensations and throws up an idea called part. It is a very mechanical process. And so this is how we cognize the world around us. And when you come to the point of self-knowledge, so if you think that you know the self exactly the way you know the part, then you got it all wrong. And so I can give you an example. Suppose in meditation, you are supposed to remain silent. And so when the mind is active, sometimes the mind could even be agitated or restless. So you can practice this very easily. When you find your mind agitated, you sit in some corner where there is light which is mild, and sit upright and close the eyes slightly and watch the mind. Suppose you do that. You can try that. But how to watch the mind? So don't try to don't try too much of rationalization. It is not required. So try to watch the mind. Don't ask how. Just do it. Try to watch the mind. When you try to watch the mind, you will be surprised to see that the mind slows down. And then the mind becomes silent. So now, even when you attempt to watch the mind, you enter into a silence. And then we give a precaution. Having entered into the silence, so just remain silent. Now, don't try to understand the silence. Suppose you try to understand the silence, that is the human mind. Whenever the human mind comes across anything of any significance, it wants to know. Suppose two people are chit-chatting or gossiping, we want to know what they are talking about. That is how the human mind functions. Therefore, when the human mind comes upon this silence, then it wants to know what is this silence. And in the process, you have already disturbed the silence. So your attempt to understand the silence becomes the obstacle for silence. Now the silence is no more. Therefore, we give a precaution. You don't try to understand the silence. You have to tell that. Because the human mind is such that we are almost addicted to know this, know that. Therefore, we want to know the silence also. And now it is no more silence. That is one precaution we give. A second precaution is, when you are in silence, when you merge in the silence, don't try to enjoy the silence. Because silence could be very enjoyable, particularly when people are stressed out so much by the hyperactivity of the mind, and when the mind doesn't know how to cease, and therefore you are caught in the web of incessant thought process, so suddenly you come upon silence, and therefore now the mind wants to enjoy that silence. The moment the mind tries to enjoy the silence, it has already broken the silence. Therefore, you should not try to understand the silence, you should not try to enjoy the silence. That is the precaution that is given. A similar precaution has to be given in the context of self-knowledge. Therefore, it is knowledge of the self, but the moment you try to know the self, the moment you try to know the self, you have put the mechanical process of knowing into operation. The mechanical process of knowing is very similar to operating a pair of tongs. When you are operating a pair of tongs with the hand, you always catch something with that pair of tongs. Similarly, when you operate the mechanical process of knowing, that is the intellect, the process of intellection, that is how it is called. Also, it can be called mentation, the mind. Mind is a function, and it functions by mentating. And therefore, when you operate the mechanical process of knowing, so it is as simple as it is akin to operating a pair of tongs. And so you are holding on to something, and though you call it that something as Atma, by the time you operate the mechanical process of knowing and catch something, that something becomes Anatma, the non-self. Just by virtue of your knowing, it becomes the non-self. And therefore, the knowledge of the self, the expression, self-knowledge, which is knowledge of the self, has to be very cautiously appreciated. It is not the knowledge in the normal meaning of the term, where you operate this process, mechanical process, and know something other than yourself. Therefore, you should not know the self, because by the time you know the self, it becomes the other. And also, there is another danger in it. When you operate the mechanical process of knowing and know something, that knowing remains short-lived. The knowledge of the self will be short-lived, like any other knowledge. Like I know the part. The knowledge of the part, which is same as the cognition of the part, it is not going to be with me forever. It is time-bound event. The cognition of the part happens, and then after a while it is gone. Similarly, self-knowledge happens as an event and it will be gone. Therefore, it becomes a very transient thing. These are some of the dangers associated with knowing of the self, self-knowledge. Then there is another problem in the expression self-knowledge. Generally, this is my habit of saying when I come across the students of Vedanta, I try to point out the pitfalls associated with the study of Vedanta. Like, generally, the self, it is presented, if you look at the scriptures, Vedantic scriptures, the self is presented as though it is something very mysterious and very, very exotic and something very big or very great, something which you are not aware of and which is so far away, separated from us, and we have to reach there, and it is just waiting there to be realized, and therefore it is even the way it is presented, the way it is described, makes it separated from us, as though far off from us. That is how it sounds. Suppose I say, Atma is eternal, timeless, spaceless reality, which is none other than the Brahman, which is the origin of this entire universe. So suppose I say in that language, already by the time you are listening to what I am saying, you can feel as if you are trying to understand something which is far off from you, away from you, very exotic, very unique, very esoteric. That is how it sounds. And in that sense, the word of self-knowledge, the word self-knowledge and any description of self makes the self away from us, and it separates, it keeps the self away. Somehow it creates a wedge between myself and the self. So that danger is also associated with the expression self-knowledge. Then there is a third disadvantage with the expression self-knowledge. By knowing the self, you become free from the cycle of birth and death. That is how it is presented. You see, there is a thing called phalam. Suppose you a prayer is there. So even as you attempt to make the prayer, it will be told to you that this prayer, when you make it, it will bring in this or that benefit to you. So there is always a description of the benefit that accrues to the person who prays. This benefit that comes to us by praying, so it is called phalam in Sanskrit. And so you always see what is called phalashruti. Suppose you recite some prayer, the phalashruti, so it will be there. It is also recited along with the prayer. And the phalashruti tells you that by just reciting this prayer, this benefit or that benefit will come to you. Sometimes the phalashruti could be as lengthy as the prayer itself. And sometimes the phalashruti could be really like, it may sound like a commercial, as our Reverend was saying. It sounds like a commercial. And therefore this habit or this tendency is there to always talk of the phalam, the benefit that accrues to us. And therefore the same tendency is displayed in the context of self-knowledge also. Therefore, it is always said, by knowing the self, you will become free from the cycle of birth and death. This is janma, marana, chakra, the cycle of birth and death, you become free from that. When it is presented like that, it fails to capture the people's imagination, because this cycle of birth and death, it is nothing, we are not bothered much about it presently. It may be there, one birth and then person dies and then he again takes birth, again dies. It is there, it's kind of a very long range thing it is. It is not something which is in the short range. It is not the issue of the present living or present existence. It becomes an issue which is at a very higher level, at a long range level. Maybe we will have to deal with it, but it is not, it doesn't sound like a very urgent thing. Therefore, even the phalashruti associated with the self-knowledge doesn't really inspire us to pursue the self-knowledge. Therefore, this expression, the self-knowledge, is ridden with such inherent difficulties these difficulties are associated with the expression self-knowledge. That's why the rishis in their wisdom, they use the word self-inquiry more than self-knowledge. They may still use the expression self-knowledge, but while using it, they are very cautious about that expression. So the precautions which I have mentioned, 3 of them, they have to be kept in mind while using the expression self-knowledge. So, because the knowledge of the self that we are talking about, it is an urgent thing. You need it urgently, now and here, to solve the problems of life that we are facing and that we are suffering from at this moment. That is how the importance of self-knowledge has to be appreciated. And therefore, the word self-knowledge cannot capture the imagination of people as well as it should. That's why the rishis, they preferred a different expression. They called it self-inquiry. That's why, if you look at the sutra literature, the literature of the aphorisms, suppose the grammar sutras, Vyakarana sutras are there. They begin as Atha Shabdanushāsanam. Now begins the teaching of the words. That is the grammar. And then if you come to yoga, the Patanjali Yoga Darshanam, the teaching begins as Atha Yoganushāsanam. Now begins the teaching of the yoga, like that. But when you come to Vedanta, the topic of self-knowledge, when you come, it doesn't begin as Atha Atma Jnanam or Atha Brahma. Brahma is same as Atma. So we will come to that. Atha Brahma Jnanam, like that it doesn't begin. Now begins the knowledge of the Brahman. That is not how the Vedanta begins. Therefore, because it is not the knowledge of the Brahman or Atman, which is already worked out and it is offered on a silver platter to the devotees. It is not like that. It is not like that at all. That's why the Vedanta Sutras, they begin as Athato Brahma Jijñāsa. Now begins the self-inquiry. So now it is not that I have the knowledge of the self ready-made, taken from the scriptures, and therefore I am about to offer it to you. I being the guru, the preceptor, so I have it all with me. You don't have it, and now I offer it to you. Now come and take it and become blessed. It is this kind of an approach which is very common in a religious situation. Suppose if it comes to the teaching of a religious scripture, that is how it works. Like I know the scripture, I have studied the Veda and I am the guru. You have not studied Veda, you do not know. So come and sit before me. I will teach you. You learn. Then you will be blessed. That is the method that operates in a religious situation. That is how we learn many things in the university also. We go to university and that is how we learn it. But when it comes to Atma Jnanam, the self-knowledge, that is not the method at all. There is a lot more embellishment to that method required. You have to modify that method. The Atma Jnanam, the knowledge of the self, is not like knowledge of anything else. Because the self happens to be yourself. And therefore, you have to know about yourself. But then you may question, I know about myself. Who doesn't know about himself? Everybody knows about himself. So now, you come and say, I have to know myself. So why should I know myself? Because I already know myself. So this is one issue. And then I have to tell you, you do not know yourself. I have to tell you. Then you will question me, come on, what are you talking? I know myself. Yes, then I have to tell you, no, you keep an open mind. Don't rush into this thing. You just have an open mind. You have an idea of yourself, true. But that you take yourself to be a person. That is how you look at yourself. And that is an image that you have about yourself. What you know about yourself is not the real self. You just have an image of yourself. And you should understand that the image can never be the real thing. Therefore, what you take yourself to be is merely an image of yourself. In other words, what you think yourself to be is a shadow self, not the real self. Suppose a person is standing and so his body casts a shadow on the ground in the sunlight. And now, instead of taking himself to be the standing physical entity, he takes himself to be this shadow. Shadow is not real. Shadow appears, but it is not real. Suppose I ask you, what is your weight? You will say some 70 kg or whatever. Suppose I ask you, what is the weight of the shadow? Weight of the shadow is 0. Suppose you go and stand by the side of the scale, the weighing scale, so that your shadow nicely falls on the weighing scale. So what will be the weight of the shadow? 0. It doesn't have any weight. How come it doesn't have any weight? Weight or mass, whatever. How come it doesn't have any mass? Because it is not a thing. It is an appearance. I don't say apparition, because if I say apparition, you may imagine something else, some spirit, this and that. It is a mere appearance. You can still say apparition, but it is a mere appearance. So now you look at yourself, you take yourself to be a person, and you have a lot of description of that person. Like I am a male, female, that is the gender-wise description. And then I am an Indian, or I am an American, or I am Indo-American. That is some kind of a mental conception taken as the self. And then any description of oneself in terms of caste, creed, race, religion, regional descriptions, like I am a Californian, I am a New Yorker, etc. So these are all, any one of them is not the real self. All of them put together, they do not constitute the real